Drag-and-Drop Email Designer. In this video, we will go over the usage and the settings of the email drag-and-drop designer. To access the creator, we can take one of the few shortcuts. The first one is in a quick links menu on the start page. Next, we can go to the email marketing and access it through the quick links menu here as well. Alternatively, once we go to email list, we have another path through the email drag-and-drop designer menu on the left side. The designer is broken down into two parts: the workspace area on the left hand side and the contextual menu on the right hand side. When opening the creator, we're greeted with a basic field layout screen. Here we can choose how we want to structure our email. Alternatively, we can choose one of the many pre-made templates. Since we are learning with the designer, we don't want to get overwhelmed. So let's get started with the very basics. After selecting our layout, we have to click on Go to Edit button on the top right of the screen. Here, we have access to all the available widgets in the designer itself. Before that though, we have to get acquainted with the basic settings of the designer itself. First, let's get started with the general settings of the email itself. Starting from the top, the email name is the name of the email that will be visible in the system. This will not be seen by any recipients of the email. This is only meant for organization purposes and will only be displayed on the email list. The email subject will be visible to the customer. We generally recommend having around 40 characters for the email subject itself. The subject line itself can also be added with emojis. The option to add a button on an email list in a Gmail inbox allows us to create a contextual button next to the subject line in the email as it is viewed in the Gmail mailing client. Next, the group menu allows us to assign an email to a predefined group. You can think of groups as folders meant to organize your newsletters. Alternatively, if we don't have a group that we want, we can create one on the spot using the plus icon on the right side. The Send From menu allows us to specify which user or which email marketing account will be responsible for sending this email. Likewise, we can add a new email marketing account with the plus icon on the right side. The email width is the total width of the email in pixels. The horizontal margin is the margin granted between the total email width and the actual content inside the email. Email window color and background color menus allow us to choose the colors for the respective parts of the email. We can also enter a predefined color to match some of the graphics that we already have outside of this email. The pre-header is a summary text that follows the subject line when an email is viewed in the inbox of an email client. The campaign name checkbox allows us to enter the Google Analytics monitoring ID. The attachment checkbox allows us to add a file same way we would to a regular email. This is good for learning resources such as PDFs or other resources we would want to attach. With the general settings out of the way, let's get started with the widgets and creating the actual content of the email. To do so, we have to go to the Widgets button on the top right of the designer. As you can see here, we have a wide variety of widgets available to us. Let's take a look at them one by one. The first widget we have is the text widget. In order to add the widget, we have to click, drag, and drop the widget onto the left-hand side. In here, we'll be able to edit the widget by either clicking on the contextual pencil icon or right-clicking on the widget itself. When hovering your cursor over the widget, there's also other options. On the top left, we have our movement handle. Here, by clicking, dragging, and dropping, we can rearrange different widgets in order. The copy icon allows us to copy the widget with its current settings. The delete icon allows us to delete the widget entirely. The plus icon on the right side allows us to create an exact copy of the widget on the right hand side and place it in a column next to it. To delete the extra columns, we'll have to edit the widget, go to the contextual menu, and click on a delete icon next to the column name. We can also add the columns from the same menu. Now that we are editing the text menu, we can change the horizontal margins as well as the vertical margins. We also have the option to make these margins persistent in a mobile setting. The background color setting allows us to change the background color of this specific widget. We have some standard options for the text edition. Bold, italics, and other stylization options are available, as well as few additional options. The first unique one is the insert opt-out link. The opt-out link is a requirement for all emails. In fact, our designer mandates that every email has to have an opt-out link in it before we can save it. Let's say, for example, that this opt-out widget got deleted, and we have to add a new one. In this case, we would edit the text widget, enter our text, highlight the text, and click the opt-out option. We also have an option to add a URL redirection. Lastly, we have the personalization option. In this menu, we'll be able to pick one of the many placeholders that will be replaced with a value from the contact's contact card. We have a wide variety here, ranging from the name of the person, their first name, last name, all the way until the time and date when the email is being sent. As an example, using this placeholder, name.p1 will insert the first position of somebody's name into the email here. For example, it will say, "Hey there, John, don't like our newsletters? You can now subscribe here," which is a better way of personalizing an email. Let's move on to the next widget. The next widget available to us is the image widget. This widget is pretty straightforward. Once dropped onto the edition pane, we simply have to select a specific image that we would like to display in its place. The image widget allows us to change the horizontal vertical margins, the background color, the URL of the site the client will be redirected to when they click on the image, as well as the alternative text. We can also change the image again if we've made a mistake or have changed our minds on which image will be displayed. The next widget is the button widget. This widget has its standard formatting options for text inside the button itself, as well as the size of the button itself. The next widgets are a combination of the previous three widgets. The image and text in row, image, text, and button are all combinations of the text, image, and button widgets. They all have familiar settings. However, when trying to edit either the image, the text, or the button, the settings for each of these parts are in one place. Moving on from there, the next widget is a social media widget. This allows us to add social media buttons to the email itself. This widget has a lot of predefined social media platforms. For example, let's say we don't need the Google Plus link. We can simply uncheck it and it will disappear from the widget itself. We can also choose different types of spacing between the buttons, as well as different button styles. The separator widget is meant to space out other widgets or to create a divider between them. The separator is quite narrow from the start, so let's make it a little bigger and change its style. We have our typical top and bottom margins, as well as the height and width of the widget itself. Changing the height increases its thickness. There are also different border styles: solid, none, dashed, double. Selecting none will basically make the divider invisible. Keep in mind that the divider itself may seem a little bigger in the designer for ease of use. To view its actual spacing, we would have to go to the preview pane of the designer itself. The preview option is available on the top right of the screen, between the Generate HTML button and the Widgets button. In here, we'll be able to see how our email will look like in a browser, on a tablet, or on a phone. Keep in mind, this does not include the replacement of the placeholders. We still need to add a few things to our email, so let's go back to Edition. The next widget is the preview link to the email itself. In some cases, emails can have blocked images or be otherwise unreadable because of the programs that display them. To bypass that, most emails should be included with a preview link allowing the email to be opened inside a browser. The preview link is a basic text widget with a simple link, including the $preview placeholder, linking to this specific email's preview image. The image group widget allows us to stitch together multiple images to create a collage. Like any other widget, this widget has settings for the images to be linked and to display an alternative text, as well as to change the images themselves. We can also adjust the divisions between the images themselves through this handle right here. The HTML code widget allows us to place custom-made HTML code into the email designer itself. If, for example, your designer has some sort of a widget or a graphic or another functionality in an email that they would really like to import into an otherwise finished drag-and-drop template, they can do so through this widget right here. Up next is the opt-out link widget, which we've already managed to make ourselves. However, it is there for easy access and to quickly add a very necessary part to every email. Before we can get to the dynamic product frame, let's talk about the static product frames. The product frames allow you to add products into your email with the information from your XML feed. When adding a product frame, we are prompted to select a specific product to be displayed. Clicking on it takes us to the gallery of all the products from your product feed. We can search by ID, brand, category, as well as filter through price. When editing the widget, you have an option to change the general settings of the widget itself, including the spacing, the amount of products, the product fields themselves, where we'll be able to edit the formatting and which data will be displayed about the product. Let's say, for example, the name. Any formatting changes applied to these placeholders will be applied to the replace text about the product. These text fields can be deleted and placed through the menu above. We also have the familiar button settings menu. On the very top, we can also change the layout between the image and the details about the product itself. With the static product frames out of the way, We can now discuss the dynamic product frames. While these widgets have the very same settings for formatting, spacing, and graphical options, we do not have an option of choosing which product will be displayed. This is determined by automation processes. For example, this dynamic frame can be used with an abandoned cart scenario to specifically pick the products that the customer has last left in their cart and have not made a purchase of. If we wanted to create an abandoned cart email, we would have to use this widget, save the email, and then use this specific email in an automation scenario. Lastly, we have the banner widget, which requires a banner configuration to be made before starting to create the email. Seems like we're almost done with our email. Let's try to finish it up with everything we've learned so far. Every email should have a header, a middle section for the content, and the footer itself. So let's first try to divide these up by copying the divider, while keeping the call to action button in the center, adding some content, and changing the style of the content to match the rest of the email. And there we go. With all these together, we can create a professional looking email with ease and functionality. One last very important tip. When using our designer, if you make any mistakes, it's okay. You can always use our undo function. To learn more, you can visit our website at support.salesmanago.com.